All right, everyone. It is game two of the one-page rules Worlds Beyond tournament that I played in. It's my High Elf Fleets again against Boz's Soul Snatcher Colts. So we're going to go into this list here today. Game two. So 1,500 points, 5 objectives. We're still on the 4x4 table. You're going to notice in this particular one, again, the scenarios are all the basic scenario. They're always 5 objectives. And the other thing is the terrain generally stayed the same. When we think about actually a competitive event, the fact that the terrain of the scenario stayed the same in all of them actually it made for a lot of good competitive testing. I did want to talk about here that Boz is running a casual list, and I'm going to show a competitive list later. So let's just go into that. No surprise, I did win this game. We're going to talk about though how we can make some of these Soul Snatcher cults lists better. This is just my list. I've went through it before. Elven Noble with a combat shield wall, running both the regen and the stealth upgrade with the revenants. You got 5-man unit of protectors, a 10-man unit of revenants that I have with the mirror scythes, 10-man unit of retributors with the shield of graves. So both the 10-man unit of revenants and retributors are sort of the very key impact units. They've got some survivability as well. 5-man unit of shifters and then some scorchers at a 6-man unit with fusion rifles. We're going to get into this as well. I want to talk about how one thing I want to talk about in this particular game as a learning point is about impact. Having impactful units. You'll notice in here I do have like a throwaway unit of these protectors, but a lot of these units, especially the Revenants, Retributors, and Scorchers, have a lot of impact. When they go, especially at these low point levels, these units can just wipe out units. Let's compare this to Boz's list. So again, Boz is a casual player. He, did really good just to sort of bring what he could. But let's talk about the army list he did bring. One, Soul Snatcher Matriarch that he's got with Resistance and Warning Cry. I love those two upgrades. One of the things that makes Soul Snatchers such an A tier army. And by the way, Soul Snatchers are an A tier army. They're a very good army. I think that Boz is running a casual list, and that's fine. But you can. I am going to be showing a competitive Soul Snatcher list afterwards, and just show you just how nasty this army can be. He's running a Soul Snatcher Matriarch. He's equipped him how you do. One of the things that makes Soul Snatcher so great, they actually get access to Warning Cry. He's got a cult leader that he's run with a sniper rifle and a megaphone. The brute champion that he's got with resistance and Warning Cry again. Again, I think this is great on both of his leaders. The brute champion is running with the mutant brutes. He's got a 10-man unit of neophytes that he's got with mining lasers and heavy picks. These are scout. Mutant brutes is a 5-man with a great weapon. He's got some elite snatchers at a 5-man. And then he's got a battle tank at 460. So one of the things I would say with Boz, a lot of his units don't have, all his power is spread out. He doesn't have like a really, really hard-hitting unit. I would have loved, and I'll get into this. I'll talk about how to bring impactful units for Soul Snatchers. But for now, so this is his list. Again, his battle tank. I generally don't suggest vehicles. Vehicles are just not worth their points, and especially when you have this low point levels, vehicles they're just not at a good place. He's got a 100 kill missile. The other thing, he's not running a lot of flamers in this list, so reliable have been really good in this army. He's running some battle cannons and heavy machine guns. The thing with running this sort of stuff on a quality 4 vehicle, as we're going to get into, quality 4 vehicles and monsters are just by their very nature not reliable. I've actually talked about this a lot in my advanced tactics episodes. One of the things when you play a tournament, you have to have reliability. And this battle tank, if you can roll good, it's tremendously good. But it's at that 4 up, it can be very swingy. And in a game like Grimdark Future, especially on turn 2, if you don't roll good, like the first turn or two, the battle can you can just lose it automatically. But just in general, vehicles are not good. There's a reason that in this tournament, I wasn't surprised. I didn't see basically any vehicles other than Boz's, and it sort of speaks to how just problematic vehicles are and why they're not good. So let's look at the Soul Snatcher spells. I want to talk about them. They're very key to the army. Soul Snatchers have just some super good spells. One of the best spells lists in the game. Level 1 Stimulant's amazing. Again, of all the spells for a good spell list, your level 1 is so pivotal. And the fact that Soul Snatchers have a just bonkers level 1 that gives them +1 attack is amazing. They've got, their damage spells are pretty on par with everything. Level 2 defense +1 is also extremely good. +1 defense. This army generally is a little squishier. It's great to have. And then another thing that's just terrific is just this -8 next time I charge. For a hand-to-hand and fast army like Soul Snatchers, to have a spell like this to counter other hand-to-hand armies is terrific. And the fact that Soul Snatchers, they have the caster tokens to get there. So yeah, just super good spell list. Like, all right, so let's get into the setup here. So this is just setting up objectives. I got to set up 3, and the first thing I did is I set up 3 of my objectives very close to one another, and I set them up on my side. So one of the things I will talk about for objective play is that those 3 objectives that I'm showing you are within exactly 9 inches of each other. And that allows a big squad like those Avengers or those Guardians to grab multiple of them on the same turn. All right, so that's just the center here. You can just see I have 3 objectives on my side. He's got 2 on his side. And this is just going to be just sort of a straight out just dogfight. He only sets up his tank and scout, and the rest is coming in for scout, but I already know that, so I just plan accordingly. Yeah, I'm not too worried. Again, because he doesn't have a lot of impact on his units, I can trade away. So he just sets up his matriarch right there. He sets up his 3 units just sort of right in the face. Would have loved if he would have put those in terrain, but it is what it is. It wouldn't have probably helped anyway. Anyway, so that's just him just setting those up. He does get to go first, so yeah, that's just some pictures of the setup here today. All right, yeah, that's just another picture of the battlefield. And yeah, and that's just him getting his 3 caster tokens as well. All right, it's just some other angles. You could just see what we're doing, protecting my dragons with my retributors, and my banshees are in difficult terrain, so they're protected against getting charged because he doesn't have Strider on those units. All right, so let's just get into turn 1. Boz and his Soul Snatchers do get to go first. So let's go back here. The first thing he does is he charges his matriarch. I think he casts the +1 attack on it. He charges in. I think he kills like 3 or 4 of these Avengers. Actually wavers them, but doesn't kill them. So he does waver these Avengers. Yeah, I think I'd do a couple of wounds on him too, but he's fine. Yeah, at this point, so again, he maimed those Avengers, but didn't kill them. As opposed to my activation, this 10-man squad runs over against his brutes and just wipes them out, right? A 10-man against a 5-man, I'm able to completely wipe out those brutes, and then I consolidate into cover. His leader moves up. They shoot those banshees, but they're in terrain. He does try to sniper rifle my leader, but yeah, I didn't like the sniper rifle. I generally don't like sniper rifles in competitive play. They're just too expensive for their points. So I don't. Yeah, I would prefer if you're going to run snipers, you run them in like maybe 6-man squads and just sort of really get value that way. Yeah, he does kill a couple of banshees with his mining lasers and such. At this point, my dragons, they just move up and they shoot the matriarch and just wipe out the matriarch. He moves up his tank. Again, this goes back to it. He shoots. He does okay. He kills like 1 or 2, but let's go back to it. Because he's quality 4 base, he doesn't roll great. And that's the thing about quality 4 tanks and monsters. He really needed this tank to roll awesome. And like I think, for instance, his battle cannon missed. So when you're relying on that 4-up quality on these tanks, you don't get the consistency. And this was, again, just really was even more hurtful that his tank, at quality 4, you don't have the consistency. And I go back to that. What makes competitive lists good? Consistency. So his tank just doesn't roll good. I then move up my guys. Again, this is me just doing what I did last game, where I stay within 1 inch of each other, but I'm able just to grab both objectives with this 5-man squad. Yeah, and that's just the dragons grabbing that other objective, and it's turn 2. I'm not going to go too much because objectives really don't matter too much in this game. Soul Snatchers do get to go first. Let's just show the ambushes. He drops his Elite Snatchers in behind, and I drop my Warp Spiders behind here so they can't get charged. They're just going to be a good counter tank play. All right, so that's just the picture of turn 2, real fast, and he does get to go first. Yeah, he sends his elite soul snatchers into my dragons. He wipes them out, which is fine. That's okay. I just send my banshees into that 10-man squad. I kill majority of them, and they flee. So those banshees in 2 turns have just ate 2 squads. They just consolidate and cover. So he moves up and he shoots. He actually rolls pretty good. He kills a lot of the banshees, but again, he really needed to do that a turn ago. So that's just a rough one. At this point, I just move up my warp spiders and cover. They shoot. They do like 8 wounds into that tank, but the tank's fine. And the Avengers then just turn around. No, I think they unwaver, or they. No, actually, I think they don't waver. I'm sorry, they didn't waver last turn, and they shoot, kill a couple of those soul snatchers. The Guardians, the Protectors, then move up and shoot and kill another 2 of the soul snatchers. Manage to actually waver it as well. So Boz isn't actually rolling great as well, and that's a pretty big deal. This is just the end of the end of the turn, and not looking good for Boz, just with 1 unit left here. At this point, he shoots. I think this is just turn 3. He shoots, doesn't roll any damage. And then the Banshees just finish off the Elite Snatcher, and the Spiders just shoot and finish off the tank. So, we didn't... that was actually turn 3, and actually on turn 4 he concedes. The game went by so fast, I don't want to talk too much about the game. The game, like I said, was a wipe for myself. It's an army wipe and a victory to high elf fleets. Boz did have some bad rolls, but he was running a casual list, and this is the thing I go back to. I did mix up the turns. Technically, it was a turn 4 concession. I switched I missed to put that turn 3 marker. It didn't really matter. It's just one. You can see the problem with impact when you run a list that doesn't have these combined units. You need a combination. You need a combination of combined troops that can just hit and murder things. And then you also need small troops, which can sort of grab objectives and beat chaff here. So just keep that in mind here. I want to talk about that Soul Snatchers. I don't want to leave this talking about how Soul Snatchers are bad. Soul Snatchers are really good, and I want us to look at a competitive list. So if I was playing in this tournament, let's look at a competitive list that I would have ran. This is a 1,500 point list. Let's look at it. One thing I would say here, it's got this Soul Snatcher Matriarch. Now, I'm showing her not combined just for organization's sake. This Soul Snatcher Matriarch is actually in the minion squad, and I'll talk about why. But she's quality 3. She's got that caster 3. She's got resistance and warning cry. And she's in that 20-man minion squad. The other thing I have is an occult hitman. This guy is 65 points, dual swords, and that takedown with scout is super good. This is such a great model for 65 points. He can actually trade up pretty well for 65 points. That scout and takedown, a very good... rather than paying 70 points for a single sniper rifle, I would pay 65 points for this character that can kill a character and do a lot of work. So this Cult Hitman is super good. I really like him in the army. And then I have a 20-man minion squad. So this is a squad that has 4 flamers in it. It's only quality 5, but that Soul Snatcher Matriarch is in the squad, so they're basically quality 3. This is a super good squad with just those 4 flamers. The other thing, the Matriarch can protect them, can give them +1 defense if necessary. It can also give them +1 attack. Even these guys are only quality 5. With +1 attack, they're charging them with 40 attacks. So, and the Matriarch itself, really good. This Matriarch is just, she works very, even though she loses her scout, she works very well in this 20-man minion squad, which is just basically a 4-man flamer squad. Eventually, the minions are going to die, and then the Matriarch is going to be on her own and just take advantage of her scout and strider. So keep that in mind. I then got a 10-man unit of Soul Snatchers. They've got the Caster 1 upgrade. So this is my turn 1 charge. Remember, they've got Caster 1. So on turn 1, they can basically grab a couple of caster tokens from the Matriarch, cast the level 1 stimulant at +1 attack and just charge in with 30 AP1 rending attacks on something. So these Soul Snatchers, they'll even kill a Hive Lord. I mean, these Soul Snatchers will absolutely murder just about everything. And they're going to, because we're talking about impact, they're going to just wipe something out in one turn. Then I've got a 10-man Elite Soul Snatcher. So these Soul Snatchers that are scouting in, they're going to die. They're basically going to trade. They're going to kill something, probably, hopefully kill something higher in value, and then they're going to die. But the next turn, I've got an ambushing fast Strider with regen and Def 3 that are coming in. They've got 2 casters, so they can also give themselves the +1 attack, charge in, and murder something else. The only difference is that these guys are actually more tougher. Super good unit. I then have 2 3-man unit of bikers. So these bikers are just used as chaff. They can also be used to protect the Soul Snatchers. They can do a little damage. I'm mainly using these guys as just chaff, but they're also difficult to kill. Even if they waver, these bikers are actually similar to those swarms we talked about earlier. Yeah, they're super good, fast and scout, so they're able to play the objective game. They are a little expensive, but they also can do a little more damage. And again, they've got those shooting weapons as well. Yeah, the bikers are super good. Man, this is a super good list. Like, I want to talk about as well. Talk about the Soul Snatcher spells. Just, I mean, especially in this army, we can see why these spells are just amazing. Plus, the level 1 +1 attack is for the 2 10-man Soul Snatcher units. They're just gonna run in and murder something. They then have the +1 defense. So as the mid game goes on, you're casting those +1 defenses when needed. Again, it's sort of like the regen upgrade for alien hives. It's on-demand defense. And then the final thing, this level 3 mind control is so good against any sort of counter hand-to-hand army. We're talking about orcs, alien hives, anything where you're facing armies that have a big hand-to-hand monster unit themselves. You can generally charge in, wipe something out, and then you can grab the caster tokens to actually cast this on a counter hand-to-hand unit themselves and sort of stop from getting charged. So you can put this on a Hive Lord. That Hive Lord is only charging 4 inches. You can put this on, an Orc squad. It's a super good spell. So, Soul Snatchers have 3 incredibly... They have some of the best spells in the game. And 3 of the best spells in the game. I would highly suggest running a pretty caster-heavy Soul Snatcher list. This is what makes this army an A-tier army. Do not kid yourself, Soul Snatchers are super good. And this army is a template for how you run Soul Snatchers. All right, let's just get into some learning points. So I'd always say play to Soul Snatcher strength. Run them with caster. Run them as sort of a first strike, murder something, and then they get traded away, but you've got that second wave coming in with those elite snatchers. I would generally avoid tanks, not just for Soul Snatchers, but for anything. Tanks are just not in a good place. I would generally, for Soul Snatchers, try to run flamers, especially on their minion squads. Minion squads with flamers are great. I love either the 10-mans, especially the 20-man minion squads with 4 flamers. That will do work. As always, bring combined squads for just some really impactful first activations. I think a 10-man Elite Snatchers and a 10-man Soul Snatcher squad with those caster upgrades, just to sort of give themselves +1 attack, it's a super good combo. Super good. All right, thanks for watching. You can always provide feedback, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you're in Austin, hey, join us on the Austin Alternative Game.